Two agents known as Alexander Petrov and Ruslan Basharov travelled to Salisbury and contaminated the door handle of Sturgess' house with the nerve agent novichok, with callous and despicable disregard for others who might enter or leave that address. Sergei and Yulia were poisoned and spent weeks in a critical condition. Others, including Detective Sergeant Nick Bailey, were harmed as they responded to the incident. Then, on the 30th of June 2018, Charlie Rowley gave his partner Dawn Sturgess a gift of a Nina Ricci perfume bottle. She sprayed her wrists with the contents. Tragically, the bottle contained novichok and had been recklessly thrown away by Petrov and Basharov as they left Salisbury 4 months earlier. Dawn died at Salisbury Hospital on the 8th of July 2018. An inquest was opened. However, it was clear that a proper examination of Dawn Sturgess' death would require a statutory public inquiry, which has been chaired by Lord Hughes. Today, after an extensive and painstaking process, the inquiry has published its report. The inquiry has found that those who were involved in the assassination attempt against Sergei Skripal were morally responsible for Dawn's death, and that deploying a highly toxic nerve agent in a busy city was an astonishingly reckless act. The Chair concludes that the operation must have been signed off at the highest level of the Russian state, including President Putin. Now, in respect to the emergency services treatment of Dawn, the inquiry found that she received entirely appropriate medical care, but that tragically her condition was unsurvivable. In terms of preventability, the Chair has concluded that the government's public health advice following the attack on the Skripals was reasonable. He also found that although there were failings in the management of Sergei Skripal, the risk of assassination by Russian personnel was reasonably assessed, and based on that assessment, he did not need a new identity. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, the inquiry has been clear in its findings of responsibility, and we must respond equally unequivocally. Now, I've described the acute threat that Russia poses to the UK and to our national security to honourable members in the House previously. Its recent acts have ranged from murdering Alexander Litvinenko, using a deadly nerve agent in Salisbury, espionage, arson, cyber attacks, and the targeting of UK parliamentarians for interference operations. Since 2018, the UK has been at the forefront of the response against Russia. In direct response to the poisonings, the then government expelled 23 Russian undeclared intelligence officers. This triggered the expulsion of over 150 Russian diplomats by 28 countries, including NATO allies. The UK has subsequently committed to prevent the rebuild of Russian intelligence and to remove Russian dirty money in the UK, developed legislative powers to harden the UK's defences against state threats, and delivered new port and border powers, increased security checks on goods from Russia, and banned Russian-owned or linked aircraft from entering the UK. The invasion of Ukraine introduced a stark new reality and demonstrated Russia's intent to undermine European security as well as global security. The UK has led the way, standing by Ukraine and providing unprecedented military, humanitarian and diplomatic support. In total, the UK has committed £21.8 billion for Ukraine and has sanctioned over 2,900 individuals, entities and ships. This government is proud to be at the forefront of the coalition of the willing to support Ukraine in defending its sovereignty and security. Now, this has inevitably made the UK a target for increased hostile activity by Russia. Following an arson attack in East London in May of 2024, the then Home Secretary warned of a pattern of Russian malign activities across Europe, which had reached UK soil. In response, the UK expelled the Russian defence attaché and removed diplomatic status from Russian properties believed to have been used for intelligence purposes. We are determined that the UK remains a hard operating environment for the Russian intelligence services. In October last year, we sanctioned 3 Russian agencies and 3 senior figures who were attempting to undermine and destabilise Ukraine and its democracy. And in July, the UK sanctioned and exposed 3 GRU units and 18 of their military intelligence officers for the targeting of Yulia Skripal and cyber operations in support of Putin's illegal war in the Ukraine. Yet we are now grappling with an increasingly reckless methodology. The Director General of MI5 recently highlighted Russian state actors turning to proxies for their dirty work, recruiting disposable individuals on social media platforms, instructing them via encrypted apps, and then offering payment in cryptocurrencies. UK law enforcement has secured convictions in several significant cases just this year. 6 individuals spying for Russia, 6 men involved in an arson attack on a warehouse supplying Ukraine, an individual who attempted to offer services to Russian intelligence, and a former MEP who accepted bribes to promote pro-Russian narratives in the EU Parliament. These cases serve as a strong reminder for anyone seeking to facilitate or undertake hostile state activity for Russia on UK soil. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, this government remains committed to providing our law enforcement partners with the tools that they need to tackle these threats. We've specified Russia on the enhanced tier of the Foreign Influence Registration Scheme to make it even more challenging to conceal relationships with the Russian state. And Madam Deputy Speaker, I can now announce that the government is going further. Today, my right honourable friend, the Foreign Secretary, has imposed a further cost on the Russian regime by sanctioning the GRU under the Russia sanctions regime, along with several associated individuals. These sanctions recognise the continued reckless and destabilising activity of the GRU, which seeks to undermine Ukraine, European security and the safety of the United Kingdom. They will include sanctions against 8 GRU officers under the cyber sanctions regime and 3 GRU officers under the Russia sanctions regime who have been implicated in hostile activity across Europe. We are also summoning the Russian ambassador to hold Russia to account for its responsibility for the tragic death of a British citizen. Madam Deputy Speaker, there's also been extensive misinformation and disinformation relating to these horrific and barbaric poisonings. This inquiry has categorically rejected those falsehoods, and this government continues to reject the lies spread by Russia through its propaganda and through its paid mouthpieces. I wish to wholeheartedly, I'm sure on behalf of the whole House, thank Lord Hughes and his team. This was a considerable task of great importance, and they have collectively approached it with diligence, care and sensitivity. I also want to take, I'm sure on behalf of the whole House, the opportunity to thank the first responders, military personnel, the scientists, the medical practitioners and all of those responsible for responding to the attack. They are the very best of us, and I know that members right across the House will join me today in paying tribute to them for the important work that they do to keep us safe. Madam Deputy Speaker, Dawn Sturgess was the victim of an utterly reckless and dangerous act, a chemical weapons attack perpetrated by Russia on British soil. The pain and suffering it has caused can never be underdone. But we must honour Dawn Sturgess's memory, uphold truth and justice, and keep everyone in our country safe. I commend this statement to the House.